Hello everyone, welcome back to the Statistical Academy. My name is Sanjeev Reddy. Remember that dates in SAS are stored as the number of days since January 1st, 1960. It is possible for data to also include times or a combination of dates and times. A time value in SAS is stored as the number of seconds from midnight. A datetime value in SAS is stored as the number of seconds from the midnight on January 1st, 1960. Just like SAS date values, the numeric storage method enables us to calculate time between two events or sort by time or datetime. SAS offers a wide variety of functions that enable you to extract information from date, time, or datetime values and perform internal calculations or shift values based on a specific time period. Let's try some of the common date and time functions. There are many formats that you can use to display both date and time component of a SAS datetime value. But what if you wanted to separate the date or time value and create new variables? You can do this with either the datepart or timepart function. For both functions, the only required argument is a SAS datetime value. The functions return raw SAS date and time numeric values, and you can apply a format to improve the display. Suppose you need to count the number of some time intervals such as weeks, weekdays, or months that have occurred between a start and end date. You can use the intck function to return the number of interval boundaries of a given time period that occur between two dates. The syntax for the intck function begins with the time interval you wanted to count. Examples of time intervals are year, month, week, or weekday. The second argument is the start date and the third argument is the end date. The optional fourth argument defines the calculation method. Let's look at the start and end date that began on the 21st of July and ended on the 31st of July. Let's consider these dates on a calendar. How many weeks passed between these two dates? It depends on when one week ends and the next week begins. One option is to count the number of standard interval boundaries that occur between the dates. A standard interval boundary for a week begins on Sunday and ends on Saturday. Here, there are two end of week boundaries that occur. The first between July 22nd and 23rd, and second between July 29th and 30th. This method for calculating interval boundaries is called discrete, and it is the default for the intck function. A different way to consider the number of weeks between two dates is to count weeks based on continuous count from the start date. The conclusion of the first and only one complete week is between 27th and 28th. This method for counting intervals is called continuous. If you wanted to use the continuous method for interval calculations, you must specify the letter C in quotation marks as the fourth argument in the intck function. Let's look at another problem you can solve with functions. Suppose you have a data set that includes treatment dates and you wanted to create a variable for the follow-up date. The follow-up date that shifts the dates to the first day of the following month. You can use the intnx function for adjusting and shifting the date values. You specify an interval such as week, month, year, or many others as the first argument, and the name of the SAS date variable at the second argument. The third argument is the increment number, which represents the number of intervals to shift the value from the start date. The optional fourth argument controls the position of SAS dates within the interval. Let's look at this in a demo and see how different values for each of the arguments impacts the dates that are returned. Let's say the date is the treatment date, and after taking the treatment, we wanted to see the patient's condition in a month. We will create a new variable called follow-up date that will use the intnx function to shift the dates based on when the treatment began. Let's take a look at this first assignment statement for the follow-up date. The intnx function has 3 arguments. The first argument is the interval or time period, so we will use month. The second argument is the start date, and the third argument is the increment. So what is returned from this expression? Notice that the original dates are whatever the specific date was when the treatment was given. The follow-up date has been shifted to the first of the same month. Well, let's try a few other combinations of arguments. What if I change the interval to 2 and rerun the program? Notice that the follow-up date now has shifted forward by 2 months, but the date within the month is still returned as the first. Back to the program. For the third argument, I will use a -1, and I will add an optional fourth argument, which is the alignment. We have seen by default the first of each month is returned. But this time I will use the fourth argument as end and run again. So -1 shifts the date backwards, so the previous month, and the fourth argument end aligns to the end of the month, the last day of the previous month. There are other values that we can choose for that fourth argument instead of end. How about middle? All of the dates are either the 16th or 15th depending on how many days are within the month. These values look good for the follow-up date. Back in the program, I would like to add another variable, follow-up date 2, and I want this to be after 5 years. So again, I will use the intnx function. The increment this time will be year. I will shift the values of the date. The third argument will be 5 to advance the dates by 5 years. And for the fourth argument, I will use the same. In other words, the same date 5 years in the future. Finally, I will need to add follow-up date 2 on the format statement. Let's see how it looks. Great. Follow-up date 2 is now same day and month as the date, but 5 years in the future. intnx provides a really flexible way of shifting dates depending on the interval and the duration that you need. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Until next time, happy learning.